Welcome to the Eye Test, a fantasy football podcast for those who are tired of hearing boring stats all the time. This is episode 28 and our way too early second round mock draft for 2023. Paul leads us off at the top of the second round. Paul, take it away.
Yeah, so I know in the last episode we flirted with Derrick Henry being that last first round pick, and I hate to break it to you, I'm not picking him again here. I'm not picking him at the 2-1.
Wow.
What I'm going to do instead is I'm
What
going
did
to
he
go.
do to you?
Yeah.
Dude, it's not that Derrick Henry did. I just think the Titans are ass, and I don't think they're going to get any better. And
yeah, but he just, like I said a couple weeks ago, I think Derrick Henry's the next Frank Gore, except better than Frank Gore. But when I say Frank Gore in terms of like durability and stuff, I think he's going to keep going until he's like, 35, something like that.
Yeah. For the fact that Henry missed half the season last year and just picked it up where he left off,
Yeah.
gotta say something.
What was his finish this year, real quick, before
4.
Paul makes his pick? 4? Oh, my God.
And quite frankly, we've only had 4 running backs drafted, so essentially this is on par for at least running backs. But yeah, let's let Paul pick. Sorry, Paul.
no, those are all really good arguments, and in a real draft, I might reconsider this, but you know what? I'm sticking to my guns here because it's way too early, and I don't care.
It is way too early.
I'm going to pick the wide receiver 6 for the year so far, and that is CeeDee Lamb.
I like the pick. No, I do like it.
So
John just any Cowboys person.
Let me fire CeeDee Lamb in there. And yeah, and I drafted CeeDee Lamb around this spot this year. And when Dak Prescott went down after week 1, and even when Dak Prescott was playing, I think he got through like the first 3 quarters. I think he got injured in the 4th or late in the game. CeeDee Lamb did not have a good week 1, and I was like, oh God, this sucks. This isn't going to be good. But then CeeDee Lamb still played well with Cooper Rush. And then when Dak Prescott got back, even in a run-heavy, focused offense, CeeDee Lamb put up really good numbers. He's able to hit that home run for you and give you a 30-plus point game like 2 or 3 times a year. I don't see Zeke being back in a Cowboys uniform next year, which only helps CeeDee Lamb. He's going to be there. I think they're going to be throwing the ball. He's going to be an even bigger focal point in this offense. And coming from this is his second year, going into the third year, I think he's just going to have a great year. He's still only 24 years old. He's improved his route running. He's shown that he can make contested catches. I love CeeDee Lamb, and I want him on my team. So I'm drafting him with the first.
I agree with you now, although I think I definitely had CeeDee in the second round, don't get me wrong, but I did not have him at the 2-1. However, quick correction, it's his 3rd year going into his 4th year next year.
Oh, okay.
But every year since 2020, he has shown progression in every stat. In ranking, he was the 22nd best wide receiver, then the 19th, and now the 6th. A huge jump. And the year number 3 is where you really see wide receivers. If they're going to be breakout stars, that's when you see it. If you haven't seen it in the first 2 years, you see it in the 3rd, then you're good to go. CeeDee Lamb is totally going to be a star. Touchdowns, he went from 5 his rookie year, 6 his next, 8 this year. Yards, 935, 1,100, 1,300. I mean, those are big jumps. And then, of course, fantasy points, the most important stat, 215, 232, 285. That is such a big jump. And people were drafting CeeDee Lamb in the second round last year. I think that he put up probably about second round value this year, but borderline late first. So, Paul, I shit on you for that pick, but I think I take it back because I don't have CeeDee Lamb that much further. I had CeeDee Lamb at my 2-4.
Yeah. But Derrick Henry, that is good point. So maybe after you guys talked with me, I might reconsider.
Yeah. It's definitely Derrick Henry that deserves to be in this spot. He's a late first round, early second round for next year as of now. And that is mainly just because I think he showed you after his injury last year. He came back. People were still afraid to draft him, but you felt like you had to. I mean, Derrick Henry was a top 5, top 6 pick last year, and it was not the easiest one to do. I mean, you're risking a lot taking that, and it worked out. He showed everyone that he can, stay healthy for the whole season, except for, of course, the freaking championship week. So I'm sure he let some people down. But Derrick Henry will be our 2-2 pick. And I think that could be where he falls in a lot of redraft leagues next year.
I think depending on the person, he could definitely end up in the first round, but he's probably looking more like an early second round pick at this point, considering the wide receiver talent that's there. Unless you have someone that's still going the classic route of going with their running backs early because they're scared that they won't be able to get a quality one later in the draft. But Derrick Henry, he's literally just showed that last year was a complete outlier. He's never been hurt in his career pretty much outside of last year. And like I said, I think he's the Frank Gore of modern football right now, or I shouldn't say modern football, of people that are currently in the league in terms of running backs. He's just extremely durable, keeps himself in amazing shape, and I expect him to stay at this level for at least another 3 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. He's about to be 30, and he's a second round draft pick.
Yeah, he's just an absolute beast, dude. And he is the entire offense. So.
He's a fucking unit. Imagine if they get a decent quarterback and then, they have Treylon Burks, who showed some flashes even with the mess at quarterback. So hopefully they get a good quarterback in there to open up the offense a little bit.
Yeah, very true. Very true. All right, Bob, who is your 2.3?
So I think I'm going to shock a couple people here. He is pretty much in the same range as he was this past season in terms of his ADP. He was going late first, early second, which is where we're at right now. But for the most part of the year, was extremely disappointing. Definitely considered one of the bigger fantasy busts early in the season to mid-season. And I'm taking Najee Harris here.
Nice.
Wow. Okay.
I'm taking Najee Harris here, and I really like what I'm seeing from the Steelers, particularly Kenny Pickett towards the end of this season. They may sneak into a playoff spot. I think he's coming into his own, and that only bodes well for Najee Harris going into next season. So I'm looking for basically Kenny Pickett to grow even more and to open up that Steelers offense more, and I think Najee Harris warrants an early second round pick at this point, even though he was considered a bust for most of the season. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I like Najee Harris, and especially what I've seen from him of late. If you guys saw our TikTok, I actually touched on him in the Sunday Night Football reaction because he has been a bright spot. And Najee Harris and Kenny Pickett, this Steelers offense has just continued to improve week after week. And that's exactly what you want to see. It's not like Najee Harris has one giant game that implodes his stats. He's been slowly getting better along with Kenny Pickett. And I think both these guys are going to be staples in the Steelers offense for a long time. That doesn't mean draft Kenny Pickett in the 5th or 6th round, but I think Najee Harris is a very solid pick here.
Yeah, I think that, I have 4 or 5 other running backs getting drafted before Najee in the second round.
Really?
I do.
Wow.
Yes. And a lot of it is me strictly going off of this year, and that's not the smartest way to go about it. But this is a way so early of a mock draft that of course I'm going to have all these running backs drafted before Najee. I think you might have been thinking a little too much in the future, Bob, but we'll let it slide.
That's what we got to do, John. We got to think. We got to project.
Yeah, you're right. I know.
We got to help the viewers.
My Najee value will probably shoot up as the offseason comes on, and I'll explain it in the fact that Najee really wasn't that healthy coming into this season. And I think that really affected his bulk of his season. I think we're just seeing Najee recover. I think time has passed now to where Najee, one, is fitting in with a new offense that's ran by a rookie quarterback. And I think that he is healthier than he was in the beginning of the year. And we're seeing what Najee looked like last year now. Granted, a little late. Of course, if you had him in the playoffs and the championship, you're probably pretty happy. So late for some folks, just on time for others. That's the joy of fantasy. We move on to the 2.4, Paul's pick. Who do you got? Is it another Cowboy?
No, it's not another Cowboy. But yeah, I had Najee Harris a little lower on my list, but I still really, really like that pick. for the reasons I just described. So I have this guy coming in on my list at 2.2. So I had him right after CeeDee Lamb. And that is Nick Chubb, running back
Wow.
for the
Ooh,
Browns.
Jesus Christ.
damn.
And for
Tale
a
of two
similar
cities.
argument with Derrick Henry is that Nick Chubb, first of all, Nick Chubb, how old is he? He's not like old.
He's 28 next year.
Oh,
We said that last episode.
I
Remember
know,
shitting on
dude.
Nick
That's on
Chubb?
me. I still like Nick Chubb a lot, though. I think with Deshaun Watson and Kevin Stefanski, this offense is only going to continue to get better. And Chubb, I don't think Kareem Hunt will be. I know I hate Deshaun Watson, but he's a good football player.
Pick a side, dude. Do
No,
you like
I
the
think-
Browns or do you hate the Browns?
My bias tells me he's going to suck, but
Dude, he had a
the
great
eye
game
test watching Deshaun Watson play football, he is very good. I just
Thank you.
hate him.
You finally came around, Paul. He's going to be really good next year.
I think he's going to be serviceable, but I think that this offense is still going to run through Nick Chubb. And
Yeah,
Kareem Hunt's probably not going to be in the picture next year. I know Kareem Hunt has a down year. It's not like he's been what we're used to seeing of Kareem Hunt. And so I think Nick Chubb is just going to continue. You know, I'm so tired of having him go under the radar. So I finally said, screw it. I'm going to pick him. And so I have Nick Chubb as an early second round pick.
So I had Nick Chubb actually way lower. I still had him in the second round, but I had him way lower in the second round. I had him as the 210. And
we traded places because I had Najee that low.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So my reasoning for that is a little bit of recency bias. Chubb had a great start to the season, just kind of fell off towards the tail end of the season, but still like him as a player and everything. But if we're talking drafting him in the early second, the reason why Chubb was not why he was so good, but why a lot of people were like surprised and everything is because he was being drafted at the tail end of the second round, early third round this past season. So there was a lot of value that you got out of making that pick later in the draft. So now you're pushing Chubb back up to the early second round. The problem with him is there's not a lot of receiving upside. Even though there'll be no Kareem Hunt, I'd be just a little cautious about drafting him that high.
Yeah, and there's nothing stopping the Browns from getting a receiving running back in the offseason either if they get rid of Kareem Hunt.
Yeah. Nick Chubb is still the RB6 in PPR formats right now. So
right.
That's mainly because of his touchdowns.
Call him what you want. The guy scores a lot.
He does. Like we said last week, fantasy points is the most important stat when it comes to fantasy players. I mean, Nick Chubb has been staying healthy, so he doesn't have like the injury-prone tag. So I'm not going to be saying that. It's just 28 is the magic number where we start to see negative regression.
Chubb has a floor of 8 touchdowns a year. That's just crazy.
It's very good. And yeah, you look at his consistency of the last 4 years in terms of where he stood in terms of rankings, 8, 11, 13, 6 since 2009. So he's been borderline RB1 or an RB1 basically his whole career. Has never finished outside of the top 20. So in the second round, I see it. Although Bobby made a good point that like last year he was drafted later, it was great value. Now we're like expecting Chubb to put up similar numbers this year as he's a year older. I don't know.
It'll be good discussion, especially as we know Kareem Hunt's gonna leave, and as Chubb, they'll probably bring in another running back too, I would think. But we still know the offense will run through Chubb. It'll just be interesting to see how everything unfolds with the Browns with a whole offseason with Deshaun Watson, and maybe are they still going to be fully committed to the run with Deshaun Watson under center for a full season? We'll see.
And this, honestly, I think this next pick for the 2.5, I think that if something changes on this team that he could potentially shoot up to the first round. Definitely early second round, but that's Tony Pollard. I think this is amazing value for Tony Pollard right now.
Really?
I do.
Really?
Especially if Zeke moves on and Tony Pollard is the workhorse for the Cowboys. Tony Pollard should be drafted before AJ Brown. Like I think Tony Pollard could be a last pick in the first round for sure.
Did you look at my board, John? Because I had Pollard at 2.5 too.
No, I didn't. I made my board before you.
I didn't have.
True.
That's crazy. I didn't have Pollard in the second round at all.
I didn't have Chubb. I didn't have Chubb in the second round at all.
I love Pollard next year.
I love Pollard too, but the biggest question I have with him, it's not a talent thing. It's we haven't seen it. We haven't seen, one, if he could stay healthy as a workhorse running back, because he's a smaller dude. He's not a big guy. And he just doesn't have a track record of being a workhorse back. He had a couple opportunities with Zeke out, but question you got to ask yourself, if you're drafting him this high, is that good enough of a sample size for you to draft him this high? And I just don't know if it's worth the risk.
Definitely not good enough of a sample size. That's totally true. However, it was one of those things where, like, last year we just got like a little taste of Tony Pollard when Zeke was out, and we're like, oh, like when he's the guy, he's good. Obviously, he was running back 3 last year, but we saw in those games that Zeke was not playing, that Tony Pollard could do it. And people took the chance of him in the running back dead zone this year, and it paid off.
Yeah.
And so I think when you do that, when you take the larger risk last year and it pays off, I think this is a much smaller risk to do it in the second round, whether Zeke is the RB1 or not. And then, of course, if Zeke is not the running back, that should assure you even more that Tony Pollard can withstand these numbers.
So question, you would still take him in the second round if Zeke's back next year?
Yes. In fact, I would take him at this spot because as of now, Zeke is still there.
Yeah.
I would not.
I'm not that
RB7 this year.
Dude,
I still need Zeke out of the picture.
Yeah, but he was drafted so like low. To expect him to put that up again when you're drafting him this high, it could easily pay off. It's just such a risk.
Yeah, I just can't take a running back 2 on a depth chart as a second round pick.
Yeah, I couldn't do it either. But I respect. But if I could definitely still do it if Zeke isn't back. But it would still be a risk. You're just banking on, like, we just haven't seen it. We don't know if we don't even know if he could handle a full workload for a season yet.
Yeah. Dude, okay, Pollard's sample size is small, don't get me wrong. This was his first year of like consistent points.
Yeah.
There's some players on this board still where if they have been consistent, then maybe they had their first like bad year, their drop-off year this year, which like you don't want to pick in the second round anymore. And then there's a couple other players that are available in the second round where it's like small sample size too. So I feel like the second round is like where you're grabbing those guys on the up and up. And unfortunately, a lot of times in the first round, you're grabbing people that have been consistent for so long and you're going to get their first drop-off year this year. So yeah. I think the second round is very important, and finding a solid second round pick is amazing because if your first round pick is right, then you had a great draft already. But nailing your draft pick in the second round is important because if your first round pick shits the bed, second round pick can put up first round value.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the Cowboys backfield this offseason. So Tony Pollard 2.5. Is that my pick now, correct?
Yes.
So I actually had a running back as it wasn't Tony Pollard. But I'm not going to go the running back that, even though he hasn't been picked yet, I'm not going to go him. I'm going to go receiver again at the 2.6, and that is Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Nice. That's a good one.
I had him on my board too.
And this guy's been extremely consistent with the Lions. I don't care what happens in the drafts with the Lions. I ultimately, at the end of the day, think Jared Goff's going to be back, which he's already developed the chemistry and everything. I'm not worried about Jameson Williams. Plenty of mouths to feed in that offense, and Goff has shown that he could spread the ball around. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I look for another wide receiver 1 type year next year. There's really nothing barring injury that's going to hold him back from that I see, at least. Maybe, do you guys agree?
Yeah, I think Amon-Ra should totally be in there. He's clearly the number one target, especially now that T-Hawk left. That was like the thing where there were times where there was going to be a T-Hawk game or an Amon-Ra St. Brown game. Like, now it's just Amon-Ra. That's perfect. So, I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, I love Amon-Ra St. Brown here. I think he's going to be a stud for years to come. And we don't talk about him because he's on the Lions, but then this year happened. The Lions have been a lot of fun and have been actually like a pretty good offensive team. So I think Jameson Williams will be the perfect complement to Amon-Ra St. Brown, where I'm getting like Keenan Allen, Mike Williams vibes
Ooh,
from
I like that.
this
I like that.
where Jameson Williams will have some deep shots, but Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to have 12, 13, 14 targets a game. Easy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Target-
and I will say this, like, as of now, Amon-Ra is definitely a second-round pick, but if we find out that Jared Goff is not the quarterback, that changes my opinion on Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I know we spoke about that on a couple different episodes, but if this is your first time tuning in, I do not think I think Amon-Ra's value will be hyped up if Goff is not the quarterback next year, and I think that is the wrong thought to have. But as of now, for the way too early 2023 draft pick, I agree with you guys.
Perfect.
Awesome. So is it
That
me
puts
now?
Paul. Yeah, Paul at 2-7.
All right. I have a very running back heavy second round here. And I'm really torn between these two young running backs. And I'm going to do this not just to make Bob happy, but I truly believe that he will be a star. And I'm going to go with Breece Hall here.
Oh.
Dude, I was thinking I couldn't muster up the courage to put him in my second round with the injury. I couldn't do it.
Me too.
I'm going to do it just because
But
he
I
is,
like it.
Yeah. He's super young. How old is he? He's 22.
He's a rookie. He was a rookie this year.
Yeah, he's 21, so he'll be 22 next year. I don't know his injury history in college, but I don't think it was anything crazy. He got hurt early enough in the year where he will have a full offseason to recover and get healthy. And just and it is a very small sample size, but what we saw was just absolute electricity flowing through Breece Hall's veins. Every time he got the ball, he just made something happen. And he's my candidate this year for the biggest breakout. I know he was a candidate this year for a breakout, but I think you're getting a player here in the middle to late second round that could very easily be a top 3 running back next year.
Yeah, I agree. If he's healthy, 100%. He's just, like you said, he's just one of those guys that you want to sit down and watch. You know what I mean? And I'm not just saying that as a Jets fan. Like, he was just, whenever he touched the ball, you expected something big to happen. And a lot of the time, something big did happen. The only thing that would stop me from drafting him, even at the end of the first round, or even mid-first round, forget it, like, is just the injury. Can't be really, I don't know if you could wait like 4 or 5 games for your second round pick to come back.
Yeah. And I think he's going to be a guy that people are going to be hesitant on, but then we're going to look back at like week 6, week 7 and be like, damn it, I can't believe I took whoever over Breece Hall.
Joe Mixon.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a good point. Breece Hall clearly passed the eye test. You look at the sample size here, and it's like, all right, he had the 27-point game against the Dolphins defense, 20-point game against the Packers. He had 3 mediocre to below average games, but he passed the eye test, and he got injured at not the worst time of the year. It wasn't super late, so he's going to have a whole offseason. He'll probably be able to partake in the offseason at some point. And I think that, again, next year, you're drafting to win the league. So Breece Hall clearly has it. If he stays healthy, he's going to be putting up more 20-point games than 13-point games. It was his second game in the NFL, for Christ's sake. So, yeah, once he found his groove with the Jets, and, of course, there was a running back controversy all offseason for the Jets because up almost until week 1, we thought Michael Carter was the running back, right? Or no, up until week 1, we thought Breece Hall was the running back 1, and then they changed it for week 1 to make it Michael Carter. I'm pretty sure that's how it went. And so we were like, fuck. But then, obviously, Brees Hall fell into place. 4 touchdowns in the last 4 games that he played his rookie year. He passes the eye test for sure in both the rushing game and the receiving game.
Agreed.
So that's a good pick for sure. All right, so I'm up, and I'm going to go with this guy I guess he was RB dead zone, but it was only the real fantasy nerds that were like, this guy's going to be good next year or this year. And that is, do you think you know who it is?
I know
think
exactly who it is.
All right, you guys can say it.
I feel like I'm going to be wrong, though, but is it Ramondre?
It's Ramondre Stevenson.
Okay, all right.
Ramondre Stevenson at the 2.8. And I just think that if Harris, I don't know what his deal looks like with the Patriots, but I do think that the Patriots finally know who their running back 1 is. And I also think it helps Mac Jones out, too, a lot. I think a lot of the Patriots' success, they can really bank on Ramondre all of next season, and they'll have a better year. I think it'll make Mac Jones look better, too, especially if they can find a way to get a receiver in there. I think that's like a triple threat. Mac Jones, Ramondre Stevenson, and some receiver that they can either draft or find in the offseason. I think that is a very good team as long as they're still coached by Belichick.
I think it's just the biggest question, not even really a question. It got solidified this year, but yeah, with, like you said, with the Damian Harris situation and more of Bill Belichick's, you just never know what he's going to do. He could bench a guy randomly and then you never see him again. So that would be my only concern, but I think Ramondre Stevenson in the mid-second round is a good pick, and that's where he should be drafted personally.
Look at that PPR upside, too. He's had so many games where he's had more than 4 catches. That's what you need out of a running back. 4 catches a game, you're set, because they're going to get at least 20 yards. So, you're getting an extra 6 points a game on top of what he's rushing for.
Yeah, I love Ramondre Stevenson. I think that he might be the riskiest pick in the second round so far that we've selected, just because of what Bob said. And I'd have to look at the history of Patriots running backs, but I feel like it has been
it's not good.
Yeah, it's been
really
kind of a cartwheel of different running backs. They've had Damian Harris had the big year last year, and then it was Stevenson's year this year. And then when Tom Brady was there, they had a bunch of them. I mean, they got LeGarrette. They had a really good running back, and they got LeGarrette Blount in the middle of the season, and then LeGarrette Blount just took over. I forget who it was.
Wait, hold on. Remember that guy, that one running back? What was it? His name, Jonas. I can't remember his name. He scored 4 touchdowns in a playoff game or something, and then they just never heard from him again after that. I can't remember his name.
Sounds like Bill Belichick.
Yeah. It was Jonas. Hold on. I got to look this up.
Jonas Gray?
Jonas Gray. Yup, that's it.
Jonas Gray.
Wow, the Jonas Gray Award.
Yeah.
That sounds like an award that we have.
Write that down. Write that down.
It would be Gabe Davis.
Literally, dude.
But scores 4 touchdowns in a playoff game and then isn't throwing the ball the next year.
Yeah, it's crazy. So that would be my only concern with it. But I think that's a good pick. Ramondre Stevenson climbing up. Talk about ADP just shooting up from.
Was he not even on your guys' list for the second round?
No, I had him at the bottom of the second round.
Yeah, I had him at 2.
I had him at 211.
I had him at 2.8, right where he went.
Okay, nice.
All right, so that leaves me. And again, when I did my original mock draft, I had a couple running backs higher. But I'm going to go receiver again. I was just looking up. I had Dalvin Cook and Joe Mixon higher in my original mock.
Me too.
But I just can't. Dalvin Cook's on the decline. We could see it. The eye test tells you that. He still had some good games. He was still an RB1, barely, but he still was an RB1 this year. Joe Mixon doesn't pass the eye test for me. And I'd rather just get a wide receiver that I know is still ascending and that I know is going to get the ball a lot. So I'm going Jalen Waddle here.
Nice pick, Bob. He was my 2.5, actually, Jalen Waddle.
I had him at 2.7. Is that what we're at now, 2.7?
2.9.
Oh, okay. So, yeah.
Yeah, I had Waddle right at 2.9.
There we go, Paul.
Yeah, like you said,
Not as
dude,
different as we thought, huh?
as we were talking about, or as Paul said earlier, imagine Tom Brady goes to the Dolphins or Aaron Rodgers goes to the Dolphins, and they got Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill running around with those guys that could hit them on any given route. No real injury concerns there. The refs always protect Brady and Rodgers, and somehow the Dolphins' offensive line will figure out how to block better for those guys. So if that does happen, Jalen Waddle will probably be drafted at the top of the second round if that does happen.
Yeah, certainly. And one thing that I'm noticing right now is like just the flip flop of the draft strategy from last year to this year. Last year's second round was just all wide receivers because all the running backs were drafted in the first round. So the teams that had to go wide receiver in the first round and then doubled down on wide receiver in the second, they're probably pretty successful this year. But yeah, look at that. 6 running backs drafted in the second round. You don't see that often.
No, it's definitely turning. It's definitely turning. For at least this
Totally is.
upcoming season, it's going to turn. But I don't know. It just might be the modern NFL also, There's just so much skill at the wide receiver position and running backs. They get hurt a lot. A lot of running backs, even a guy like Aaron Jones, who was drafted at the top of the second round last year, he splits time. Like a lot of these guys split time, even if they're a high-end running back. So, you're looking for points in fantasy.
Right. Right. And for some reason, I feel like there's a higher chance that your wide receiver will have a breakout game. And I'm talking like high ceiling, like over 35 points than a
Yeah.
running back will. Like you have those running backs that you're like, oh, actually, I'll switch that point up. There are wide receivers that will get you 20 points a game. And there are probably more of those wide receivers than there are those running backs. You have CMC. He's like a lock for 20 points. And Eckler. Barkley, I guess. Pretty much those first round running backs are the locks for 20 points. And then you're getting into the ones. Henry can go into the first round. Then you got Harris, Chubb, Pollard, Hall, Stevenson. They can have dud games too.
Yeah.
So, but Waddle, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and CeeDee Lamb, they can all score 40 points.
Yeah.
So I
100%.
do think wide receivers are more valuable than running backs for 2023.
Who does that leave?
Paul's up,
It's-
then me, then Bob will finish us off.
It's me again. So
It's a me.
It's a me. So I really want to do like a very spicy pick here. And so I'll talk with him a little bit, but I'm not picking this guy, but like my super spicy second round pick is I actually had Christian Kirk as my last pick in the second round.
That's so spicy, Paul.
It's
so
very
crazy.
spicy. I know. Real quick, a lot of it has to do with I think Trevor Lawrence is just going to completely take a huge monster leap forward next year. And I know Calvin Ridley's coming back. Don't really care about that. But my pick here is Travis Etienne. He is the guy who
Really?
I
Wow.
cannot allow him to fall out of the second round here. I'd have to have him on my team. He started off really slow, not really slow, but a little slower. People were worried about him being a bust. But whenever you get a young star running back who James Robinson's out of the picture, Doug Peterson clearly trusts Etienne because he's been spoon feeding him the ball the second half of the season. I think Etienne here has a lot of upside, not as much upside as a Breece Hall, but I still think that Etienne is a fantastic option here. And if you were able to get Justin Jefferson, if you were able to get Tyreek Hill, if you got a superstar receiver in the first round, I would definitely be looking to grab, I guess we can call him a surefire RB1, but he's definitely RB1. I think he'll definitely be an RB1 next year. But I think if you can grab him, I think you should.
I think Travis Etienne will be better than this year for sure next year, and for the reasons that you said, Paul. And another thought is like next year will be a whole season after his injury that he had.
Yeah,
and
good point.
Saquon Barkley,
Great
like
point.
all that
Good
shit.
point.
So I can totally see Travis Etienne having a breakout year. Now, I do not think that Etienne will actually be drafted at this part of the second round. I think that we're on to something, that he is worth this type of value. In fact, he could be worth even higher than what we're drafting him at. but I do not think that this will actually be his ADP. I see ETN going in the 3rd round, and I think that if you grab him in the 3rd round, that is an absolute prize. I just think that there are better, like, surefire options at this part of the 2nd round that I would feel comfortable going with. But hey, if you know something and if you want a player, you go get him. So hey, Team 3 has Eckler and ETN at this moment. So
Yeah.
it's pretty nice.
One thought before we get on to the next pick with ETN is I will say I had ETN this year, and since we were talking about Trevor Lawrence taking a leap next year, he's already taken a leap this year. So if we assume he's going to take an even bigger leap next year with Calvin Ridley coming back and also Doug Peterson being his coach, Doug Peterson has never been like I'm going to spoon feed my running backs consistently. We saw that happen in Philadelphia. Miles Sanders, very talented running back. Obviously, I think ETN's more talented, but never really gave Sanders that full workhorse role that maybe he deserved. So that would be the thing. I think, especially with Calvin Ridley coming back, I'd be a little more concerned about his workload because they're going to be airing the ball out. Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram if he comes back. So there's going to be a lot of mouths to feed next year. But ETN's upside will definitely be higher next year. It'll just be, will he get in the end zone? I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. All right. It's been way too long that this guy hasn't been drafted. I think Jonathan Taylor needs to be drafted.
Really,
Dude,
John?
I didn't even have him on my...
Neither did I.
Is he really going to, he's going to do better than last year. The Colts were just an absolute mess. They'll have a whole offseason to figure it out. And we know what Jonathan Taylor is capable of. So you got to draft him. You have to. This was just a shitty year for Jonathan Taylor. He didn't stay healthy the whole time. He was on a horrible team. The leader of the team, there was no leader of the team. So if they can rally around Jeff Saturday, they might do that. They got to draft a solid quarterback this year or trade for one that will help benefit Jonathan Taylor. And let's not forget, when Jeff Saturday became the coach, he made it a sure thing, like, we're going to give the ball to Jonathan Taylor. Then you just had a bunch of issues with the quarterback. It was a huge mess. I think the players started checking out of the season, and I'm sure Jonathan Taylor did too. He's going to be different next year, and I do think he's still worth a 2nd-round pick. Late 2nd round, too. I mean, it's like, come on. We know what he can do.
No, John.
He was the 1.2 last year.
He was the 1-1 last year.
All right, sure. Same thing.
No, not the same.
I just can't do it,
at the beginning of the last episode that the first 3 picks are the same thing.
But I just can't. Yeah, I mean, it's, again, way, way, way early mock draft. But I just can't see it with the Colts. They need to figure out what the fuck they're doing with that quarterback because that's the biggest problem. You always assume these guys are going to stay healthy when you're drafting them. You can't draft scared unless they're injury prone. So I just can't. I can't muster it up to draft Jonathan Taylor, especially in the 2nd round yet.
Here's the crazy thing. All right, let's just go back a couple picks. So we're okay with drafting Breece Hall, who was a rookie. Passed the eye test, don't get me wrong, but played 8 games, and 4 or 5 of them were, good. And they weren't even great games besides the 27 points. Now we're just not wanting to draft Jonathan Taylor, even though he passed the eye test and the statistical test for a whole entire season, earned the 1.2 ADP, and then, of course, had a shitty year. But, the good games that he had this year, he passed the eye test, so it's clearly the team's fault, not Jonathan Taylor's fault.
So
I still wouldn't draft Breece Hall. I'd be hesitant to draft him in the 2nd round.
So I see your argument, John. I really do.
The Steelers are just as much as a mess as the Colts. Okay, maybe not just as much.
You said the Steelers?
No, the Steelers, I take that. The Steelers are better than the Colts, obviously. But, the Steelers were a fucking mess. They just have a better coach. They were able to figure it out.
That's
in terms of personnel.
Hey, if the Colts get Sean Payton, then I'll gladly draft Jonathan Taylor in the 2nd round.
Okay. I can't trust a team that feels like has no direction. Jim Irsay came out and said that he would love to hire Jeff Saturday as the head coach for long term. And I was like, I just can't trust an organization that I feel like has no direction. They have no idea what they're doing. And Jonathan Taylor, the player, I'm sure he's still really good, but I just
23
can't.
years old.
I know,
No.
but I just can't get burned by
We're
this.
gonna be looking at Jonathan Taylor and say not quite to this extent, but I can't just think of a player. Jonathan Taylor is gonna earn a Peyton Hillis Award.
Stop. No, he was the RB6 his rookie year, and then the running back 1 the next.
Yeah,
He
but
had
he was
a good resume.
he was RB6 that year, or yeah, when he was the consensus running back 1. Like after that season, you're talking about.
He was the RB6 his rookie year, then he was the 1-1.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he was. Yeah, you're right. There was
that
some
back.
stuff, like Paul said. It's an organizational thing. Like I can't trust if they're gonna hire Jeff Saturday as their coach, and who knows if Derek Carr is gonna be the quarterback. Okay, fine, but I just don't. I just can't do it. There's other guys that I'd rather have. I'd rather take Josh Allen.
I understand that Saquon was dealing with injury stuff like 2 years ago in 2021, but like the organization was shit before they brought in Brian Daboll, and they figured it out. And I'm not saying Jeff Saturday could be coach of the year next year, but like the Colts just need a couple things just to make Jonathan Taylor successful. Like you saw that all the Giants needed was a new head coach and a running back coach, or I think they got like a new offensive line coach that everyone was talking about, and that literally made Saquon an RB1 again and a first round value pick that he stayed true to. And so I think getting Jonathan Taylor at the end of the second round is just such a, I'll say it, I think it's a steal.
Oh,
Like honestly, I probably should have had Jonathan Taylor before Ramondre Stevenson.
It's not. Yeah, it's just again way too early.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I can't say that I would do it at this point in time. But
I didn't think I was going to be such in the minority there. I thought one of you guys would have Jonathan Taylor on your list.
no, but I'm actually we're gonna close out this second round where there's a couple guys that I had in my mock draft that are still on the board, but I want to go with a little positional change here to close it out. And I'm going Josh Allen with the last pick in the second round. What pick would this is the last pick in the second round? So you would have had the first overall pick. If you could get Christian McCaffrey or like Justin Jefferson and team him up with Josh Allen, who's been the QB1 the past 3 years, I believe, then you are way ahead of the game. Talk about it's like 2 positional advantages right there, especially if you're taking like Justin Jefferson, because Justin Jefferson was definitely the most consistent wide receiver this year and had crazy upside as well. Josh Allen is good for minimum 2 touchdowns a game, along with the rushing side.
I think Josh Allen here, that last pick in the second round, if you can get, like you said, McCaffrey and Jefferson and then Josh Allen, then you have the first pick in the third round.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just stacking talent here. The best.
You get T. Higgins too still for us.
Yeah, there's a lot left here. So I do like Josh Allen, and we were talking about it in this podcast, especially like it's the change. Like quarterbacks are flying up draft boards. It's no longer the era of you can grab a Matt Stafford or a Jared Goff in the 9th, 10th, 11th round and still be in the mix. Like there's a huge drop off from the top 3, top 4 quarterbacks and the rest of them.
Yeah, I agree.
Who do you guys think got snubbed from the second round? Let's go around and
that was going to be that's what I was going to say. Who do we have left? So John, you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I had Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, DeAndre Swift, and Aaron Jones going in the second round.
Wow.
But I had forgotten about Breece Hall.
What about
someone else? ETN. I didn't have ETN in the second round or Chubb. So those are 3 guys. And honestly, I don't think Dalvin Cook deserved to be in the – I had him at the 2-9. I was like looking at it and I was like, I didn't really like that. Joe Mixon at the 2-7. He was consistent. He is on a high-powered offense. I think he's going to be 28 next year, so it's a little risky. But I do think DeAndre Swift, that's one that I will stand by. I think he is deserving of a second-round pick.
What makes you-
Because if Jamal Williams isn't on the team next year and it has to be Swift, he can do it. The only thing that's keeping him is that possible injury-prone tag, but I have shifted my opinion in terms of, like, when it comes to drafting, like, you got to just go for the win. Like, 8th place and 4th place are the exact same thing. You can't make your goal, let's make the playoffs. Like, you want to win? DeAndre Swift has a one on a high-powered offense and gets to the red zone often so that he could get a lot of, and they like to run the ball in the red zone too. So clearly.
Yeah. I think the ceiling is through the roof with DeAndre Swift. So I actually changed him out of my round 2 today. I thought about it, slept on it, but I do see your argument. I do love DeAndre Swift next year.
DeAndre Swift is undraftable for me. I would never touch him unless he fell to me in like the 3rd, 4th round. He's just undraftable. I don't care what. He has to show me that he could play a full year. It's as simple as that.
Well, yeah, you're right. The injury prone sucked, but I felt like I should probably look this up.
But another player that I think was worth considering, he's probably belongs better in the 3rd round. But what do you guys think about T. Higgins? He's a guy that I had in the 2nd round, but didn't get drafted, obviously.
I would say 3rd round, especially if I'm going wide receiver heavy in the 1st round, then T. Higgins would be my 3rd round pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing about T. Higgins for me is once T. Higgins is off the board, I think there's a clear drop-off of wide receiver talent. T. Higgins to me is like that last man standing that is like a wide receiver 1. So I would definitely grab T. Higgins in the 3rd round. I'm not sure where I would reach for him in the 2nd round. And it's kind of like, I know we have Jalen Waddle up here, but Jalen Waddle is just a home run threat every time he gets the ball, which kind of, I think, inflates his value. But I have a hard time having a wide receiver 2 on my depth chart. That would be my wide receiver 1 in fantasy. But I do like T. Higgins a lot. I think he's always like flirting with wide receiver 1 status.
Yeah. Joe Burrow's going to sling it, man. So that's the thing. But yeah, he's probably better suited in the 3rd round anyway. And I guess one more player. We already know Dalvin Cook's kind of on the decline. We touched on Joe Mixon a little bit. But a guy that I had at the end of the 2nd round who was going in the high 2nd round this past season is Aaron Jones. And we're just assuming
I had Aaron Jones at the 212.
Yeah, I had him at 210. I would just assume he stays on the Packers and Aaron Rodgers is going to be there. I think it's just more of a question of, is Matt LaFleur going to give him the ball? Or are they just going to keep giving A.J. Dillon? That's what we were talking about earlier with these running backs. You can't really – these split backfields make it really hard in fantasy.
Yeah, and flirted with Aaron Jones in mine as well. But I had 2 really spicy ones to round out my 2nd round. And
hear him before we go.
Yeah, and so I touched on Christian Kirk a little bit. That's probably the spiciest.
You're not worried about Ridley?
I'm not. And the reason why is because I think that they've paid Christian Kirk a shit ton of money. I'm not sure what they paid Calvin Ridley, but I don't think it's what they're paying Christian Kirk. And Trevor Lawrence has had a full year working with Christian Kirk. They clearly have something good going. I think Ridley can certainly get started, but what I'm worried about is that first 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Have them really get used to that. But my super spicy one, and again, this was not to make Bob happy, but I threw Garrett Wilson on there, man.
Really? Wow.
I put Garrett Wilson as my 2.12, and a lot of it is because I truly believe that Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Jet next year.
I fucking hope so, man. That
Or
would be
at least Derek Carr. So I don't think it's going to be Mike White. Mike White had a really good run, but he's not the quarterback of the future.
What if Lamar's the Jets quarterback?
Dude,
Same
stop.
You got to take – if the Jets get any, like – of these veteran quarterbacks that they're talking about, I think Garrett Wilson, maybe I don't think I would draft him at the end of the 2nd, but I think he's easily like a mid to early 3rd round pick at that point then.
I would draft Garrett Wilson before T. Higgins. I think that I can confidently say that.
Interesting.
I know I did it on this mock draft, but a gun to my head, I'm probably picking T. Higgins.
Yeah.
Just a wide receiver 1 over a wide receiver 2. How could you do that? You're going to die.
Now, Garrett Wilson was really impressive. To have over 1,000 yards with the whole quarterback carousel with the Jets
Right.
this year is very impressive. And you bring in some stability to that position next year, Garrett Wilson could easily slip in, maybe not easily, but slip into those like low-end wide receiver 1 ranks maybe, and really put his stamp on fantasy come next year.
I agree. I agree with Garrett Wilson, dude. I love that.
Yeah, I can't believe we've talked about 2 Lions and 2 Jets in the first 2 rounds.
Seriously.
Times are a changing.
All right, so before we head out, ladies and gents, let's look a recap of our second round. So with the first pick in the second round, we came to a consensus afterwards that it should have been Derrick Henry, but we went with CeeDee Lamb, or I went with CeeDee Lamb. I think the upside is there. He's awesome. But then Derrick Henry, tried and true, came in at the second pick. Najee Harris made an appearance in the first 2 rounds with the third pick in the second round.
John.
And then after Najee Harris, we had Nick Chubb, which called
John's
a little
talking
bit
about
of
Tony
backlash.
Pollard in here.
Dude, I would take Pollard over Najee for sure.
Ah, man, if Zeke's gone, that's the only way I'm doing it. But
Yeah.
Chubb was at 2.4. He caught a little backlash. Tony Pollard followed him at 2.5. He caught a little backlash. Amon-Ra St. Brown at 2.6. We universally agreed upon as a good pick. That was nice. And then Breece Hall got a lot of support, but a lot of shock and awe. So we'll see what happens there. Breece Hall was a 2.7. Ramondre Stevenson, 2.8. I personally think the not scariest, but the one I'd be the most uncomfortable with grabbing this early. But again, he is still fantastic. Jalen Waddle at 2.9. We're praying that Tom Brady's a Dolphin next year. Travis Etienne at 2.10. Jonathan Taylor at 2.11. I know if you draft him in the first round this year, you are not touching him.
John's
but I
hating Najee Harris, but taking Jonathan Taylor.
And then to round it out, we have the golden boy at quarterback, Josh Allen.
Was he the quarterback 1 this year, Josh Allen?
No.
Past 3 years. Oh,
No,
wait, no.
I think he's behind Jalen Hurts this year.
Oh, that's crazy. He's getting drafted before Jalen Hurts. I guess
think
Jalen Hurts is the 3-1.
I think Josh Allen needed like a couple points. Obviously, we know what happened to
Jalen Hurts is 3.
Oh, so
God, if you tell me it's Mahomes again, I'm going to lose. Of course it's Mahomes.
No, I think
hasn't been a quarterback 1 in 4 years.
Mahomes is a QB1 if the season ended right now, but also Josh Allen had obviously his game cut short.
Yeah,
that's right.
Josh Allen only needed like a couple points, I think, to pass Mahomes, and he would have been it for 3 straight years.
Wow, Mahomes has not been a quarterback 1 since 2018.
Damn. But yeah, gotta stack up on that talent, as you always say, John.
I do always say that.
But all right. So we're going to leave it off on that. As always, thank you for watching. This was episode 28 of the Eye Test, our way too early mock draft of the second round for 2023. We are on all your lovely social media platforms, so check us out on all of them. We will see you next time. Peace.